The charter. Okay, no problem. All right, can everyone except the pledge leaders go ahead and take their seats? And this is the regular board meeting of March 18th, 2014. And if you'll all stand and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah. Thanks for joining us. Thank you. Appreciate you coming down. Thanks so much. Thank you for helping. We appreciate you coming down. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks for coming and helping out. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Come on, shake that woman a good shake hand.
There you go. All right. Shake it like you mean it. All right. Thanks for coming down. We appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks for helping out. All right. The board did take some action in closed session. The board voted 4-0 to approve an unpaid leave for classified employee M. And we have no expulsions. And I've got, this is a regular meeting of the Board of Education for the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District. Our primary focus is the education of students of this school district. During this meeting, members of the public will have the opportunity to share information and voice their ideas and concerns regarding matters within the jurisdiction of this public agency. During the board's discussion of each agenda item, there will be time for you to have the opportunity to speak to that item. If the topic you want to address is not on the agenda, although not mandatory, we would encourage you to please fill out and turn in a tan speaker card, and you will be called to speak on that topic on communication from the public. If you wish to address an item that is on the agenda, we encourage you to fill out a blue speaker card. Again, it's not mandatory, and I will call your names in no particular order to speak to the board for no more than 3 minutes, unless otherwise noted. So that's how we conduct our meetings. And our meetings are televised, so everybody wave to the folks at home. They're televised on cable channel 28, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. and Saturdays at 9 a.m. So instead of watching cartoons on Saturday, you can all get up and see yourselves on television. So enjoy that. And Madam Superintendent, do we have any changes to the agenda tonight?
Yes, Madam President, we actually have 2 minor changes to the agenda. Discussion action item 10A has a new cover sheet, and that includes both LVCP and LVCS in the subheading and the superintendent recommendation.
Thank you.
So one slight change. And then under discussion action item 10B, comprehensive safe school plans, we have a revised site plan for Maryland Avenue Elementary School that's been distributed, and copies are at your desks with highlights showing the changes.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to recognitions. Would you please introduce the first one?
It will be absolutely my pleasure. I'd first like to introduce the principal of Mendenhall Middle School, Mrs. Susan Sambachetti. With her obvious fan club filling the audience, and well-deserved, she's going to do the honors of introducing and recognizing some very outstanding students and teachers. So while we were waiting, it was wonderful to have the Mendenhall students also were part of our flag salute. That's who led our salute tonight, and so we appreciate them coming out for that as well. It's so nice to have them show their patriotism and represent their school.
Good evening again. I'm here this evening to recognize those students who competed in the National History Day program at Mendenhall Middle School. National History
Okay, we're going to take a 2 or 3 minute break while we figure this out. Just turn off the...
National History Day is a highly regarded academic program for elementary and secondary school students begun many years ago at Mendenhall Middle School. Each year, more than 500,000 students, encouraged by thousands of teachers nationwide, participate in the National History Day contest. Students choose historical topics related to a theme. This year's theme is Rights and Responsibilities in History. Students conduct extensive primary and secondary research through libraries, archives, museums, oral history interviews, and historic sites. After analyzing and interpreting their sources and drawing conclusions about their topic's significance in history, students present their work in original papers, websites, exhibits, performances, and documentaries. And I think we have almost all of those things represented tonight. These products are entered into competitions in the spring at local, state, and national levels where they are evaluated by professional historians and educators. The program culminates in the Kenneth Baring National Contest each June, held at the University of Maryland at College Park. In addition to discovering the exciting world of the past, National History Day also helps students develop the following attributes that are critical for future success: critical thinking and problem-solving skills, research and reading skills, oral and written communication and presentation skills, self-esteem and confidence, and a sense of responsibility for and involvement in the democratic process. Full disclosure here, especially for this audience, this is taken directly from the National History Day website. I don't want to be accused of plagiarizing. We would like to recognize students from Mendenhall who advanced to the county level and participated this last weekend, and to the state level in this year's competition. To introduce the students and their topics are several teachers, including 8th grade honors teacher Robbie C., who has been the brains, the heart, and the soul behind National History Day at Mendenhall, 8th grade teacher Karen Carpenter, 7th grade honors teacher Julie Snyder, and 7th grade teacher Debbie Norton. Please come up, ladies.
And while you're coming up, I'd like to invite the parents who have children being honored tonight. If you want to come and stand behind the board and take a picture, that's perfectly appropriate. We want you to be proud of your kids and get a good picture. So feel free.
We're going to recognize 7th graders first, so the first teacher will be Debbie Norton.
For the project of Ferdinand and Isabella, Nathan Schwartz.
Why don't we have all the students stand in front of the chairs, and then at the end we're going to have you all come up again. But as you're being named, please form a line.
A group documentary about, oh my gosh, tell me, boys. Thank you. William the Conqueror, Nathan Cam, and Quinn Loach. Next was a group exhibit for Mauricio Murillo and Christopher Gonzalez, who studied the French Revolution. We had an individual, I'm sorry, I can't talk tonight, I'm nervous or something, you go figure. Individual exhibit, Lindsay Phillips on Catherine the Great. And we had an individual documentary by Tammy Lee on Johann Gutenberg. And I don't see him here tonight, but we had an amazing performance of Charlemagne the Great by Connor Livingston.
I'm Karen Carpenter. My students are 8th graders. My first award goes to Tegan Borg and Shannon Yan for their project on the abolition of slavery. My second award is for Kaylee D. Paola and her website on her individual documentary on American Sign Language. My last student is Manu Singhal for her project on Women of the Progressive Era. It's a website.
My students are also 8th graders, and the first one I'd like to recognize is for a historical paper on Eugene Debs, Brian Coy. Next, an individual website on the Second Amendment by Tommy Reeves. A group website on nature conservation and John Muir, Sarah Ng, and Leah Vengley. A group website on the Sherman Antitrust Act, Weston Everett, Andrew DeVita, and Connor Rasma. A group documentary on the Underground Railroad, Julia Cleric and Jenna Jorgensen.
And if the student on the end here, if you could move down a little bit more so we can fit. There you go. A second row if we need to.
An individual performance on child labor, Ashley Cole. And a group performance entitled Failure is Impossible, Susan B. Anthony and the Fight for Women's Suffrage. Olivia Howe and Layla El-Mashni. Well deserved, all students.
And the next part I'm very impressed about. I think you're going to introduce us to some spelling bee winners.
So for our next recognition, at the end of this, you will all know what the letters P-R-O-U-D spell, which is proud, because we are so incredibly proud of the champion spellers from our district who even placed at the county. So I will ask Mrs. Amy Robbins, our Director of Curriculum and Special Projects, to come up to introduce this item. Or actually, Mrs. Alba will be helping with that. And possibly, if I don't know if the two Carlas are here. Carla Squared? Okay, there they are, right in front. Okay, so I call them Carla Squared, even though it's math instead of spelling, because Carla Dalgo Estrada and Carla Hansen did an incredible job as teachers on special assignment planning this very challenging competition at the district level. So I think they'll be part of this recognition as well.
Hey. Good evening, Board President, trustees, and Superintendent Bowers, and my esteemed colleague next to me. It is our pleasure tonight to recognize our spelling bee champions. We held two spelling bees, one for students in grades 4 through 6 and another for students in grades 7 and 8. These students came to a district-wide spelling bee after placing and in the top couple winners at their site to participate in the spelling bee at the district level, and then some even went on to the county level. But I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to, I call them just the two Carlas from the curriculum department, who are an incredible team who will call the students up and recognize them.
Good evening. I'm old Carla. That makes her young Carla. I'd like you to see if you can spell these two words. Undulate. Perspicacious. How about winners? So we have some fine winners, and the students told me that those were two of the words that did not stump them. And so we'll call your names and have you line up over there, and we can do the picture thing again. Does that sound right? So we, from the 4th through 6th grade competitors, Samuel Siegel. Let's stand up there.
And again, any parents that would like to are welcome to come and get a picture.
Ella King. Stacy Robles. She's already been up once. Again, Meenakshi Singhal. This is the young lady who tied for first at Alameda County competition. She'll be representing us at the state competition. She said the district words were tougher than the county words. Sarah Morgan. Sarah placed 4th at the county. Miss Audrey Kane. And we're missing Miriam Brown, but she also did a very fine job. So give these spellers a round of applause.
And I know we have people from Livermore High tonight, so I wore the shirt. So, if we
So
could...
for our third recognition, and last but definitely not least, we have a very special recognition. I'll ask Ms. Michelle Gonzalez to come up. She's a world language teacher from Livermore High School, and joining her is Helen Gladden, our vice principal from Livermore High, and I believe they have a very special plaque and honor to give out.
Good evening, Superintendent Bowers, Assistant Superintendents Vanchak and Alba, Board President Runyon, and board members. My name is Helen Gladden, and I have the privilege of being a vice principal at Livermore High School. And tonight I'm very honored to present on behalf of the AFS International Programs of the United States of America. AFS stands for American Field Service, a plaque to honor, well, I'll just read what the plaque says. 2014 Top AFS School Award presented to Livermore High School in recognition of your dedication to global education and increasing international learning in your school and community. AFS is it stands for American Field Service, but what they do is they're dedicated to international high school student exchange. And as Ms. Gonzalez will explain to you after she takes over the mic, we did have a student last year go overseas on behalf of Livermore High School. So I'd like to present this to Ms. Gonzalez. She's a Spanish teacher extraordinaire, and she was the force behind the AFS Club at Livermore High School.
I'm Michelle Gonzalez, Spanish teacher. Thank you for having us, and I do appreciate this award. When I was in high school, I was an AFS student, and I was lucky enough to get a scholarship, and they sent me to live in Spain for a summer, and it changed the trajectory of my life. And I always knew that one day I would become a high school teacher, and I would offer this opportunity to other students. I'm very happy to say that we formed a club last year, and we called it the AFS Club, and we sent our first student ambassador, Mara Hand, to live and study in Costa Rica. She's here to talk to you a little bit about her experience in Costa Rica, and then I'll introduce our second student participant in the meeting tonight, Mariah Mathat. She is the president of our club this year, and I'll introduce her in a minute, but let me have Mara Hand take the mic.
When I was lucky enough to receive the LHS Student Ambassador Scholarship, I knew my life would change, but I didn't think anyone could have predicted the amount of growth and change that actually occurred. I gained the loving and caring family who I stayed with while I studied and who I still speak with multiple times a week. I gained school friends who supported me endlessly while I was abroad with them through language barriers and school difficulties, and who can continue to support my current endeavors via text and social media from half a world away. But beyond relationships, I was given the opportunity to gain an all-new perspective of the world. I was able to see that life isn't really that different in a different country, and at the same time, I was able to appreciate the little differences that made me miss my home here in Livermore. I was also lucky enough to be able to share this newfound perspective with my peers, not just the Costa Rican peers I met while abroad, but also my peers back at home. I presented my story to every single student that took a foreign language class at LHS during the first trimester. That's when our school support really came out. Students, teachers, and staff alike would stop me in the quad to ask if I really did go to school in another country and if I really did have as good as a time as I had said. Some would even ask me to prove my fluency in the Spanish language. But I always have the same answers for them. Yes, I really was lucky enough to go to school in Costa Rica where monkeys swung from the trees. Yes, I really did have a great time. It changed the trajectory of my life. I now chose colleges based on Spanish and study abroad curriculum. And as of now, I plan to live abroad for a while after college teaching English to Spanish speakers. Y sí, en serio, puedo hablar español. Programs like this that encourage students to dream and go beyond norms are extremely important on high school campuses. High school is a time when discovery of the world around us is pertinent, and what better way to do that than traveling? It not only betters the student, it betters the world. As more and more young people come to realize that teens from around the globe aren't really that different, I think a more just and peaceful world will emerge. Thank you.
I'd like to say one thing. I know Mara, and I know a lot of her friends, and some of the great stories that have come back from her friends is the inability to speak English again when she first came back. All her friends came, no, I don't speak Spanish. Please switch back to English. But it was great to hear that. It was a great story. Thank you.
And I'd like to introduce Mariah Mathett. She's the president of what we now call, not the AFS Club, but the International Student Exchange Club, ISEC. And we're calling it that because the students decided we would widen our scope and continue to work with AFS, but also other organizations that promote student exchange. Mariah can tell you herself, but Mariah will be studying abroad during her gap year in Italy through International Rotary. And she is the president of our club. She's a senior, so we'll have a new president next year. But here's Mariah Mathett to tell you about her experience coming up.
Well, I'm Mariah Mathett, and I'm the president of the International Student Exchange Club. And our three main goals are to help exchange students that come here feel more welcome. We help them adjust to the American lifestyle and how American high school works. And another goal that we have is to send a student abroad each summer so they can come back and speak about their experience and promote exchange. And our fourth goal is to find host families so students can come here. And we feel like that's one of the main things we need to do so we could promote more cultural understanding. And after I graduate, I'm going to be going to Italy for a year, and I'm going to a local high school, and I'm going to be staying with a local host family over there. And I'm really excited to do that.
That it was good fun. It was really good to see you. It's been a while. Could I say, come on.
I can't speak more highly of programs like this that take students out of their hometown and their community for an extended period of time where they learn a lot. I too was a summer participant in the between junior and senior year. I spent 8 weeks at a summer science camp on a college campus, and it too changed my life. You know, there's a difference there when you get away and you are on a college campus and you learn about going to college for starters, but you also learn the subject matter of the class. And I still have friends that contact me.
You know, it's interesting how many people talk about those kind of experiences. I'll say for me, in my time in the military, I worked on a GPS navigation system for the Air Force, and we had a representative from each of the NATO countries and another alliance that we have with countries such as Australia and New Zealand. And it was the most broadening experience of my life, as well as going to flight training with people from Portugal and Saudi Arabia and Kenya, that you learn to examine assumptions that you have about life that you didn't really know that you had because they were the default assumptions in your culture. But when you rub up against other cultures, you have to look at those things and decide whether they're really your values or not. And it changed me as an individual. And we became very close with an Italian family that we're still close with now, more than 30 years later. And we see them every time we go to Europe. So I am really glad to hear that we've got this going on, and I'm glad to hear that you're connecting with Rotary at Livermore High to do this, because they're a big proponent of international exchange as well. And that brings us to student board member reports. So have you worked out who's going first? Or okay, Haley, why don't you start?
Good evening, Superintendent Bowers, President Runyon, and Board Trustees. We are now in our second week of the final trimester of the 2013-2014 school year at Granada, and we're looking forward to finishing the year off strong. In sports, boys baseball is currently undefeated, and our boys lacrosse team recently just traveled to Idaho for a tournament where they won 1 game and lost 2. Our track and field team has a tri-meet against Monte Vista and De La Salle this Thursday, so we encourage everyone to go out and support them. Our swim team beat Cal in their last meet and are currently undefeated in league. And our boys volleyball team beat Monte Vista and is currently undefeated in the league as well. Tonight they're going to face Foothill in another match. Our boys golf took 4th in their tournament yesterday, which was in Discovery Bay. And we're really excited about all of our spring sports. They're in full swing now, so we're excited for how well they've been doing so far, and we're looking forward to watching them throughout the rest of this trimester. For academics, the Granada Expo will be held tomorrow, March 19th from 6 to 8 p.m. for incoming freshmen, current Granada students, and parents as well. The course expo is a really great way for students to become more informed about the courses and clubs available to them on campus for the upcoming school year. It's a great way to figure out which electives you'd like to take and which path you'd like to take for sciences, Englishes, maths, etc. So we encourage everyone to go, especially incoming freshmen. It's really, really helpful. And it's going to be helpful because course registration will open March 19th and close April 11th, so it really kicks off the entire process. And if you come at 5:30, there will be Food Truck Mafia serving food, so you can eat before the event. So in conjunction with the beginning of class registration and the course expo, there's going to be a homeroom for freshmen, sophomores, and juniors that's going to be based on alphabetical order to begin the course registration process. So the classroom assignments and the schedule for the day will be posted in first, second, and third period classrooms, so students can learn more about the process and learn how to log on to their account. For upcoming events, our elections for class officers will be held from Friday, March 21st to Thursday, March 27th. We encourage everyone to sign up. Forms will be taken up until Thursday afternoon, so anyone who has any questions can contact our advisors, Mrs. Cadelli and Mrs. Newkirk. Granada High's 50th anniversary celebration will be held Memorial Day weekend. Tickets for both the Friday golf tournament and the Saturday night banquet are currently on sale, and we encourage anyone who is interested to purchase a ticket. The Healthy Kids survey for all freshmen and juniors will be given on Monday and Tuesday of next week and will be done electronically for the first time on our new Google Chromebooks, so we're looking forward to seeing how that unfolds. And also there's going to be an EL reclassification ceremony held Thursday night in the Livermore High Theater for all English learner students who have demonstrated proficiency in the English language, so congratulations to them, and we look forward to celebrating with you. For leadership, our Granada Idol performances will be on March 27th for the night show and the 28th for the day show, so it's rapidly approaching. It'll be next week. We're looking forward to showcasing our school's talent, and we encourage anyone who's interested to come and attend the night show on the 27th or for further information, you can contact the school about their rally schedule and come visit us on the day show as well. We're now taking sign-ups for Mr. Matador, which will be held on April 25th. Boys from all grades are encouraged to apply, and I'll have more information regarding the event coming soon. Leadership students will be attending We Day on the 26th to celebrate their commitment to global service and empower them to be global citizens. And we were invited to We Day because of our efforts to build a water well in Ghana. So we've demonstrated that we as a school are committed to participating and contributing in a global world and society, and we really hope that we can continue this because we're excited about the commitment we've shown to bettering the lives of people in other countries and becoming more culturally aware. So we're really excited to send students to We Day, and we'll be sending students who've been participating in building the water well in Ghana. Our leadership students, class officers, and ASB officers will also be attending Castle, and this is going to begin the first Saturday of our spring break, and it's I think a 4-day event. So we're looking forward to implementing some of the wonderful new ideas that they bring back from the conference. And our bowling night that we hosted at Granada Bowl last Saturday, which was put on by the Community Outreach Committee, raised $800 towards the water well effort in Ghana, so we're almost to our goal of $5,000, and we're hoping that we'll reach it by the end of this school year so we can put the water well in, and that will be our accomplishment for this school year. In clubs and electives, this week the Red Cross Club is launching a Kick Butts campaign to encourage all Granada students to live a tobacco-free existence, and also to provide them with the necessary information and resources to do so, and to help them quit using tobacco if that's their situation currently. Our drama department is also putting on a performance of the Girls of the Garden Club. So the performances are on the 20th, the 21st, and the 22nd at 7 p.m. in the Little Theater at Granada. And there's also a matinee on the 19th at 2:15 p.m. in the Granada Little Theater. So that's all that's going on for now. Thank you.
Quite a lot, so.
Good evening, Superintendent Bowers, President Runyon, and Board of Trustees. I'm happy to say that we've finally made it to the 3rd trimester, and we're going strong until the end, and students are really happy that they've made it so far with the achievements they've done so far. So first off, for sports, our baseball, softball, lacrosse, boys volleyball, golf, and track are starting strong. Our track team, I've been informed, is being coached by our Mr. Rogie here on the board, and I believe he's very proud that one of the coaches. I believe he's very proud of our track team beating Cal at the last meet, which I'm guessing has not happened before, but, well, not recently, yeah. It's happened before. And then also, Shooting Stars, a little over a week ago, appeared on ABC News for their segment, and it can still be found throughout searching Cheers Livermore on ABC 7's news website. They have received so much attention through this segment. People from all over the Bay Area, San Jose, all over the place are calling to see if they can support and sponsor these kids. And we're really hoping that this attention will help further other schools develop their own shooting stars, like Newark High School in Granada. So we're hoping to really set some milestones for shooting stars to come. For school news, our registration for the classes of 2017, 16, and 15 are open until April 4th, and we're really hoping that students take advantage of all the extracurricular and wide classes that we really offer and really strive to push themselves harder for the new year. Our boosters had their annual Roundup dinner. That was a success, and they raised a lot of money to give back to the sports, and it was also served by student athletes as they help wait tables and raise money for their sports. Our PTSA also had their annual Monte Carlo night for the second time, and it was a large contributor to the Safe and Sober grad night. It was bigger than before or ever, and they're really proud of how they put it together, and they hope to do it as big for the next year. Our 2P peers are also doing a lunchtime activity for Kick Butts Week. There will be a piñata with Addicted to Oxygen, keychain, water bottles, and other knickknacks inside, along with the Marine Push-Up Challenge and a straw breathing contest. Like Haley was saying, they're really trying to educate their peers about tobacco, e-cigarettes, and vapor pens and all those things, because those are kind of new in the industry, and they're able to target children with cartoons And so they're really letting their peers know, you know, there was a time where we didn't know how harmful cigarettes were. We don't want to be the trial generation. Our AP testing registration was due this week, and we're having a lot of students sign up for all of their classes, which is great because that's the general goal for when people sign up for AP classes to follow and take the test. Our seniors are hearing back from colleges and making their plans for the next year, even if it's a vocational school, going to the Army, or going to a four-year university. All of our seniors are really looking at making a future for themselves. Our Disneyland trip for seniors is quickly approaching, and the first deposit for the trip is due this Friday. And this is the last week of junior prom tickets at the lowest price. The location is at the beautiful Bridges in San Ramon, and they're really excited and want to get a large amount of students going. And something that's been developing for a while, but I haven't reached out to the board about it, is that a life skill lab is being built at Livermore High School for our special needs and resource students. This includes teaching the students how to do household responsibilities and is geared towards independent living. And it's going to be used by a lot of classes and a lot of students, and they're really trying to make it as realistic and with as much opportunities as possible. They're still looking for donations to add to the facility, and if anyone's looking to contribute, you can contact Brenda Woodsmall at LHS. And in leadership, our senior class just put on Mr. Cowboy. That was led by Miss Mara Hand in the crowd. She's our senior class president. It was an amazing event with 12 amazing, diverse boys in our school. And I could not express how well-behaved, but yet funny and humorous these students were. Our Mr. Cowboy winner was Riker Johnson, who exhibited the talent of karate and was the month of December. And he actually made a list of every senior girl's name to put on his Santa's list. And he was really surprised and really appreciated his senior class for making him the winner because he did not expect it, but was really proud to get that recognition. Our leadership and student government mandatory meeting for elections for the 2014-2015 will be tomorrow at lunch, and our elections will be next week. And then for those going for appointed positions, they will be the weeks following spring break. And lastly, our Greek week is continuing to develop. Our captains have been chosen for each class, and they're outreaching into their classes to find diverse athletes mentally, physically, and strategically to produce an overall really strong class. And for now, that's all that's going on. I bet it's a lot, but that's it for now.
Well, thank you for that report. And that brings us to our employee associations. Did we have some?
I've been assured this will work. Is it working? Good. Good evening, President Runyon, board members, and Superintendent Bowers. I'm Jenny Unger. I'm currently the Vice President of Livermore Education Association and a bona fide first grade teacher, the fabulous Mrs. Unger. This week, our elementary teachers are conducting parent conferences to give updates on student progress, talking about things that are going really well, talking about things that need to be challenged or worked on, but in all, it's really good to have that communication piece with our parents. That way we can all work together on student achievement. Coming up, our students at all sites will be engaging in the Smarter Balance assessment. And just from the few emails I've seen, it is a logistical challenge. And what I'm really proud of is that our teachers are stepping up and making things work, no matter how challenging they are. And I appreciate that out of them. Our bargaining team will be meeting in negotiations beginning in April. And in an effort to engage more of our teachers in the whole process, we have invited our certificated teachers to help in writing proposals that we can bring to the table. It's one way that we feel we can get more folks involved in the process and sort of have a more engaging kind of thing going on instead of just the 4 people or 5 people in bargaining team doing all the writing. We've just finished up the election for our NEA Representative Assembly, and we will be having those tallies counted, I believe, the first week of April. And beginning tomorrow, we will have our local elections for our own executive board. There are 4 positions open. They will be voting for a week, and those results will be published at the end of next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that brings us to communications from the public. And communications from the public is a time for the public to comment either in writing or verbally on an item that is not on the agenda. The board may listen to the comment and ask staff clarifying questions, but they will neither discuss nor take action at this meeting on topics that are not on the agenda in accordance with the Brown Act. If you'd like to address a topic that's not on this evening's agenda, now is the time to do so. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes, and each speaker may speak once. And I have 2 cards, so I'm going to start with Carol Pitts, who wants to talk about restorative justice.
Not only giving me the opportunity to speak for a couple minutes, but also for the opportunity to see what it's just absolutely.
Yeah, if you can say that again into the mic so that everyone, sorry.
Well, I just wanted to say how much deeply I appreciated being here tonight and watching all those kids get their awards and the wonderful work that you all are doing to make these things happen for our youth in here. It's very exciting to me. And I'm also very excited about restorative justice and the possibility of having it be implemented in our schools, because I know there are kids that need a different kind of a touch and a different kind of healing and attention than we can always give them. I didn't mean to say all that. I would like to request that we give, that our committee who is working on restorative justice coming into our community, if we could give a presentation to show what is going on and what we expect to happen and what we want to have happen to launch this program. I know some of this, your students are already getting some restorative justice in their work. And I think that having a coordinated thing throughout the school community would be really helpful, and we have some marvelous trainers that you can meet to see how this might work out. I'm sure you've all heard about restorative justice, and you might want to know more about how it works and how it would work for us in our community. And we want to share what we know and have gathered for several years now. I've been working with restorative justice for a number of years, and was trained in the practice, and so some of the folks who are so inclined are joining us to work on this. I don't know how long you want this to be. I know it's 3 minutes, so just tell me when to stop.
And the clock didn't start on time, so I'll just ask you if there's a closing thought that you had.
Only that restorative justice has a multifaceted aspect to it. It's many things applied to many events and many situations. And so we would like to introduce that, what some of the things that you might not have heard of before, maybe you have, but as much as we know, and share that with you. So that's really my request.
All right, thank you. As I said, we can't comment on items that aren't on the agenda, but we have your contact information, and I'm going to give that to the superintendent. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Mrs. Vicki Schellenberger? There you are.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Superintendent Bowers, and our assistant soups, and the audience both here and watching at home. I'm Vicki Schellenberger. I am the president of the Livermore Valley Education Foundation. This group began 23 years ago, and it's an all-volunteer, nonprofit 501c3 tax-exempt organization. Our mission is to enhance and restore programs in the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District. We, since inception, we've given over $3.8 million to the school system, and in our last school calendar year, over $190,000 was given to our school district. Broken down, that is over $87,000 to visual and performing arts programs, almost $43,000 to science, technology, engineering, and math programs, over $21,000 in smaller academic and extracurricular grants, over $21,000 in scholarships and other awards to students and teachers in our district, and over $18,000 to middle and high school sports programs. We are an organization that really cares about making education the best possible experience for kids, no matter what school year they attend, when the economy is up or down. They all deserve the best. And we currently have vacancies on our board, and I would like to encourage folks to come and join us. Our next board meeting, you have a little time, is Monday, April 21st, 7 p.m. at the Livermore Valley Tennis Club. That's located on the corner of Concannon and Arroyo. We're just regular people. We're very nice. But we do need extra help and support, not just your dollars, which we love and we put to great use. So we do encourage you to come and join and see what we're all about, and hopefully take part in some of our activities. Bring your own ideas and thoughts and projects to the table. And I'd like to put out a little challenge to the community. After hearing our student representatives talk about all the things that go on at their school sites and how hard they work to make everything better for not just their own community but for other people, I would like to challenge our adult community to also come and help with something like LVEF or Rotary or whatever organization that really meets you. But of course, obviously I have an interest in LVEF. Because when we work together, we work better, and we all, it's a great community, and we just want to keep it that way and make it better. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Could you tell me the date again in April?
It's Monday, April 21st.
Thank you very much.
All right, and that brings us to correspondence. Mr. Rogie?
Yes, Madam President, we have some correspondence. This first one is from Dana Meistercheck. She states, I would support a parcel tax to benefit all the schools in the city of Livermore. I have 2 kids at a charter school and 1 at Granada. Next one's from Teresa Zeminski Myers. I am writing today as a mother of 2 school-aged boys. I support the partial tax measure in the community previously, and I continue to support it now. I'm an advocate for all the schools of Livermore. Do not urge one over the other, but always tell parents to choose the solutions that best work for their child, as every child learns differently. I urge you to keep the public funds generated from the parcel tax available for all the public schools and all the families of Livermore. And the last is from Pam Brown. I have children at both LVJUSD and the charter. I am in support of the parcel tax and would appreciate it if it were to also benefit the charters. That concludes it.
Thank you, Mr. Rogie. And that brings us to information discussion items. And could you introduce that first item?
Thank you, Madam President. As you know, the board and district place the highest priorities on student, staff, and campus safety. So I will ask Mr. Mike Nagel, our Executive Director of Maintenance and Operations, to present to you a summary highlighting specific security measures, site enhancements, and even future recommendations.
Okay. Thank you, Superintendent Bowers, President Runyon, members of the board, members of the community. Thank you for letting us share some of the work that we've been working on this past year. It was about a year ago that I reported to you after our site assessment survey in conjunction with the Livermore Police Department. This was following the tragic events that happened in Newtown, Connecticut at the end of 2012. And it prompted school districts across the country, including ourselves, to really take a look at safety and security on our campuses. And we got recommendations from the Livermore Police Department. And again, I want to acknowledge them and the retired Chief Sweeney and our SRO officers, Ryan Sanchez and Dan Gabral, who assisted us immediately following that event and helped us in just assessing our sites and our protocols and our procedures. And so tonight we're going to share with you some of the background of the systems that we have in place, some of the work that we've done this past year, and where we're headed. And so again, as superintendent said, we place student and staff safety as top priority. We use a variety of security systems. We practice and procedures and protocols in fire, earthquake, and lockdown throughout the year. And again, as I said earlier, we get a tremendous amount of support from the Livermore Police Department and our SRO officers at both high schools. We use a variety of systems to help secure our sites, card access controls at about half of our school sites. This past summer, we added card access at both high schools and the gymnasium areas. We used what we call Primus lock systems, which or Columbine locks, which is our lock systems that teachers and office staff can secure from inside without going into the outside. And to do that, we use that on our exit hardware as well. We use surveillance camera at a number of our sites. We continue to expand and add surveillance cameras as funds become available. The cameras assist administrators, they assist our SRO officers and any emergency agencies to help better manage the campus population and resolve incidents that occur. We have fencing and gates throughout the school sites. This helps us control the path of travel, making sure that not only are students and staff kept safe inside, but keeping people that we don't want inside as well. We can control that. We use a standard communication system throughout the district with two-way radios for our campus supervisors and yard duty. Again, as I said earlier, in the early 2013, the Livermore Police Department helped us assess our sites. We focused on 4 major areas: the physical plant and operational practices, lockdown procedures, and then certainly the training. And then they made some recommendations, and I'm going to share with you some of those this evening with some photos of the work we've done. Protos and procedures were immediately looked at and revised, and then enhancement projects were started in early 2013, and the majority were completed by the start of the school. And we continue to identify areas that need improvement. We continue to look for opportunities with grant opportunities to help offset the expenditures, and we've spent over $250,000 in the last year on site security enhancements and upgrades. Our lockdown procedures, while we looked at that, a lot of the school districts for many years used code words, and it was recommended that we just use really no code words, just initiate common language that anybody can understand, especially when we have substitute teachers and substitutes working on site that might not know what the code words mean. So we did that. It was recommended that the doors remain locked during the school day, and a number of classrooms do that. Physical plant, there were a number of things that we did over on the recommendations throughout the year, and really the main areas that we focused on were controlling our entry and exit points at our schools. We had a number of schools where you could bypass the office, and we wanted to direct all our visitors to make sure that they had to check into our school sites. We had, again, we live in a community that, it's been, our campuses have been very open, and some people are not fans of fencing, but again, fencing is not just keeping, people inside, but keeping people from outside getting in. And we had some schools that were, very open, and here's some examples of, lunch eating areas at elementary school before and then after with the fencing enhancements. Areas on campus that were very, very much open, and now are now secure with fencing and privacy slats. Front of our schools near the drop-off zone, where there's no barrier between the drop-off and the playground, those were changed. Playground areas, with our play structures, where we had low fence lines, and we increased the fence height to our standard 6-foot fence height in a number of areas at a number of our schools. And then we had the back side of our schools, a lot of them that were just completely wide open, that we might have a community use with the Parks District. We met with them, and we added fencing on several of the back of our schools, as well as just adding gates in areas and for again, controlling the path of travel. The other area we focused on were making sure that all our classrooms had the Columbine-style lock, and making sure that teachers and office staff could lock their classrooms from the inside. And it was the push-button style. All our classrooms have that now. Exit hardware has been, we have old-style exit hardware in a number of areas where the students would typically be, libraries and gymnasiums. That exit hardware has been changed out. We have been looking for opportunities for grants, and we just recently received a security grant for installing security cameras at all 5 middle schools and our K-8 schools. We just completed Junction Middle School, and we're heading on to Mendenhall next, and we'll have the 5 middle schools, K-8 schools, completed by the first of the school year. And this is an example, just the picture quality. This would be typically what an administrator would see on their computer. This is Junction Middle School, and this is giving them a perspective of the 6 cameras that are on site. We looked at a lot of our operational practices, and really it was all these different practices pertain to paying attention to who's coming and going on our campuses, and check in and check out, and visitor badges and ID badges, and making sure that we can distinguish who's supposed to be on campus with dress code and ID badges and communication. We also looked at our signage, giving notice and warning to the community that that we have surveillance cameras. We do lock the gates as recommended by the police department in certain areas, and just to help get that word out and maybe deter anything that may be needed. And then training, again, that is a critical component of any type of survival and emergency or disaster. It was recommended by Livermore Police that we increase our lockdowns, and we implemented that in our emergency drill schedule this past year. Again, our SROs meet with our staff and help us train in lockdown training, and then certainly our site principals have the liberty to hold random lockdown drills and any type of drills that they want. And then we continue to work with site staff on training on different things about doors and just how to do lockdowns. And then in addition to that, we train our staff too for emergency, fire protection and other things throughout the year. The next steps that we're taking, we continue to look at, it's ongoing. We continue to look at our physical plant. We look at our practices and lockdown procedures. Right now we're focusing on distinguishing between shelter-in-place lockdown, and we're fine-tuning it with the assistance of the Livermore Police Department. We continue to look for grants to help us, and then new technology and enhancements. That we've identified a number of things that we'd like to do, and maybe possibly be part of a future potential bond. And that pretty much covers what we have been doing this past year, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
All right. Any board member want to comment? Chuck?
You mentioned that you're going to for lockdown procedures, use common language to initiate lockdown. I noticed clear text. You're also initiating that for all two-way communication on the radio?
Yeah, that would be part. Yeah, that would be part of that, either an all-call, either over the PA system as well as radio too.
Thank you.
Mrs. White?
Well, I think one of the commitments and pacts we have with our community is that we keep our children safe. I mean, the whole scheme falls apart if the parents don't think the children are safe at school. So I applaud all of us for focusing on this, and I especially those who find extra money to do the things that we really need to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
I did have a couple of questions, and along that line, could you tell us where the grant came from?
Yeah, yes, it's in the report. It's Northern California Relief with the Keenan Insurance Group. Thank you. It was a $15,000 grant, matching grant, and again, the technology on security cameras in the last 10 years. I mean, we do have surveillance cameras at both high schools and our continuation high school. The quality and the price has really come down in the last 10 years, as you could see.
Well, the quality's come up and the prices come down.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Backwards.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. So we plan to add surveillance to all sites.
Yeah, so I did have a couple of questions. As I did the background reading and we talked about the vests that the campus supervisors are using, I'm assuming we're using generic kind of safety vests because that's what I've typically seen.
Pretty much, yes.
And I guess I have a little bit of a concern about that because we have seen people being imposters for police or other, and I would really think that it would be smart for the district to have a district kind of a vest that's instantly recognizable either by color or some kind of add-on to a generic vest with writing or some kind of symbol or something, so that it's big and it's recognizable from across campus and harder to duplicate for somebody. It just seems prudent that if we're going to use safety vests, that we not use one that someone could buy on Amazon and show up at a school and pretend to be school personnel.
That's good.
It's just a concern of mine. And then as we were going through the site reviews, I wanted to know, have we checked all of the speakers now in all of the classrooms? Because I know we've had problems at times.
That's ongoing, and one of the things that the sites do is when they do, they practice fire and earthquake and lockdown drills, and we will get if there's areas that they can't hear or there's areas that it seem staticky and things like that, we'll get that information and then follow up on that to repair or replace or add. In some cases we have to add.
Yeah.
There's kind of we've maybe made changes to the campus at a portable, but that area might block the sound waves of maybe some existing speakers, and we might have to add some additional speakers too.
Yeah, and the reason I ask is I've been on campus when announcements have been made and been unable to hear what the announcement was made because the speakers were either badly connected or old or whatever it was. And I guess, I'd like to know where we are on status with that if we have some that are still on deferred maintenance, maybe that's something that the board could
I can look that
prioritize,
Mm-hmm.
because I do think it becomes a safety issue, and I want to make sure that if we make an emergency announcement that everybody's going to hear what it is. And along those lines, I think in some places, in addition to having a speaker, that there's also a visual signal. I know that on some of the fire systems that we have a blinker or something if we have someone who's hearing impaired or they can't hear for whatever reason in the emergency. And I don't know if we have that at any of our schools.
Well, you're required by law on the fire system to have the strobe system. So that, as far as a flashing light system for lockdown and things like that, no, we don't. But we can certainly look into some type of alert system like that.
And I think I've got one more note here, so.
Okay.
Oh, on the cameras that we've installed, I know when we originally started with the high schools that those were connected. I don't know if it's through the internet and another way with the police department, and I'm wondering if the new cameras are.
Yes, they are. Yes, so administrators can actually log on from home, and they can.
And the staff here at the district office can check on a campus
As long as they have the
password
to get on, and we will give those passwords out as needed.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and so it's also available to the police department.
Yes.
And certain level of staff here in the district office, and can monitor activities on campus and be alerted if there's a problem.
That's correct.
That's great, and I'm glad to hear that they're all password protected. And I really appreciate this comprehensive report. You know, we do want our kids to be safe, and we have to balance that with the use of the facility. People have to be able to access it to come to events and things like that. And I know that we got some pushback on some of the fencing, but I think we've come up with a good balance between security and accessibility.
The overwhelming feedback that we've received from principals and sites, as well as parents, that they were very happy to see the work that was done, the areas that we made even safer for their kids, and we continue. We're not done. We still have things to do, and things change, and we want to be able to change as needed.
I did have one more. When I was reading the background reading, I saw that some of the campuses are going to the badge control that we have here at the district office. Is that something that is set ahead of time and not changeable in real time? Or is that if we went into lockdown, you could turn off everybody's access except?
You can turn off access at pretty much instantaneously. The
from
way
here?
From district, yes, and we've designed the card access to the district office is a little different, but at the sites, because you're open to the public, and there are key areas where you have to have doors that are open. We've designed those in such a way where during the business hours it would be manually locked down. It would not be automatically locked down. But there are certain doors that are 24/7 locked with the card access system.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay. Are there any questions from the public? Anyone else? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that brings us to discussion action items. I see the first one is the Prop 39 request.
Thank you, Madam President. And Mr. Chris Van Schack, our Assistant Superintendent of Administrative Services, has the pleasure of being the oversight representative from the district to the Tri-Valley Learning Corporation. So he will present the district's final offer to the Prop 39 request for the 2 existing schools.
Thank you, Mrs. Bowers. Good evening, board members. Yes, it is a pleasure to be the oversight champion of the charter schools, and this evening I'm here to talk a little bit about Proposition 39. And Proposition 39 was passed by California voters in the year 2000, and it had to do primarily with equity facilities, providing for facilities for all of the students in California. And this has become a major part of charter school law, in that each year, according to Proposition 39, they're supposed to ask us for equitable facilities. And as you can see, Proposition 39 does state that public school facilities shall be shared fairly among all public school students, including those in charter schools, and that these facilities should be reasonably equivalent and similarly furnished and equipped. And so that's sort of the theory we go by in granting the requests. And so the timelines that we face, they have to provide us with a preliminary request in November. We have a chance to look at their enrollment figures and determine whether or not we believe them to be reasonable. This year in December, we did not find their numbers to be unreasonable, and we let them know that. We then provided them with a preliminary officer or furnisher furniture and furnishings by January 31st, or on January 31st. TVLC accepted the preliminary offer furnishings for their elementary school, the K-8, and requested modification to the high school. And so then we did some negotiation, and this evening we are providing you with an opportunity to see what the final offer would be for the charter school. And so you see that in front of you. This is based upon their projected enrollment. There is an opportunity within Proposition 39 law for a recalibration if their enrollment changes. But currently, based upon a number of students, an increase in students at the high school level, we have made this offer. These are all for the high school level with the exception of middle school facilities for athletics and performing arts, which are down there at the bottom. The rest of these are all for their high school program. And so we've gone through this very carefully to see what we've provided them with in the past. I did a tour of their facility, took a look at the furniture that they've already had provided to them, and feel as though this is a fair offer. And so I'm asking you this evening, as board members, to approve this final offer. And if you do, we would provide letters to TVLC outlining the specifics of these offers. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Presumably this current year, the LVCP, the high school, is offering physics, chemistry, and biology.
Correct.
And presumably they're providing those instructional activities with equipment and furniture that was comparable to art.
In some cases, yes. In some cases, they would consider it to be less than adequate because they had more of a need in science classrooms than they expected, and so they're asking for furnishings for essentially an additional classroom.
Additional classroom,
Yes.
but that's 16 lab tables. That's more than one classroom.
16 lab tables. The kind of lab tables we were talking about were 2 students at a table.
Okay.
So the smaller tables that we use in primarily our middle school classrooms. So it's a little 2-person table, so it would seat 32.
Okay, so this is going to create facilities that are more adequate than last year.
Yeah, I would say so, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And presumably, I mean, they have a senior class this year, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So if we're providing 100 desks, that would appear to the casual observer that they're expecting 100 additional students. Is that?
That's true. Their current senior class is the smallest of the 4 classes that they have. That was their initial class. They're around 75. They're expecting an incoming class of about 125.
Okay.
But only 100 of those are art.
Correct. So we're required to provide furnishings for those students who are residents of Livermore.
So what you're saying is last year what we provided was not comparable to what we have. And so this year they're asking for adequacy or comparability.
Yeah, that's a fair way to put it.
Wouldn't say that. Last year our understanding was we gave what was comparable and what they requested, and they
We
accepted
gave
our
what they requested.
Oh, okay, I believe.
Yes.
I mean, we're not supposed to raise
Correct.
the bar.
Correct. It's not our job to determine if they've got the facilities, comparable facilities. It's their job to ask.
Their job
and
to
we provide them with.
And we provided what
Correct.
they asked for.
Correct.
Okay, and now they want more.
Another classroom worth of science tables. Correct.
Thank you.
Any other board member? Any member of the public? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we, what do we want to do?
Approve.
Approve the final offer to the Livermore Valley Tri-Valley Learning Corporation for their request for additional furniture.
I'll second that.
And Mr. Rogie, will you call the roll?
Mrs. White.
Aye.
President Runyon.
Aye.
Dr. Dunlop.
Aye.
Myself, aye, and Mr. McLaughlin is not here. He's absent, so it's 4 ayes.
Ms. Schultz is here.
Or-
Ms. Schultz is here.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry.
All right, and that brings us to the Comprehensive Safe School Plan report.
Thank you, Madam President. Next, I'll ask Mr. Scott Vernoy, our Director of Student Services, to present the Comprehensive Safe School Plans for each school site. These have been approved at the school site council level, and then we're asking for the board to also approve them.
Thank you very much. Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers, and esteemed colleagues, tonight it's my pleasure to present the Comprehensive Safe School Plan for the time frame 2014-2015. If this picture looks familiar, Mike and I took pictures of the same kids. Our goal is to create a positive learning environment so everyone can thrive. So Education Code 32280 requires all California schools to develop comprehensive safe school plans. So each school site council at each school in our district is responsible for the overall development of the comprehensive plan. Plans are created cooperatively with students, parents, and staff, and plans should focus on the strengths and experiences of the site to meet the safety needs. There are many pieces to this plan. And here they are. So we have our overarching district mission, which is each student will graduate with the skills needed to contribute and thrive in a changing world, as well as each school site also has their vision that they add to the plan. Then there's a data analysis that goes on by our school site councils and safety committees. They look at healthy kids surveys, discipline data, students' attendance, parent focus groups, surveys, and formal and informal observations. And then each school comes up with goals in a component one, which is people and programs, and I'll have examples of those to come. And then a component two, which is a place or a facility goal as well. Each of the school site comprehensive plans also includes our disaster and emergency plans, which are updated every summer, and then so we can implement them at the beginning of the year, but they are reviewed ongoing and then are part of this plan. And then our district policies are also a part of this plan, and there are specific policies that are mandated by the Ed Code, and they are child abuse reporting, suspension and expulsion, notifying teachers of dangerous students, sexual harassment, dress code, anti-bullying, hate crimes, visitors on campus, school discipline rules and procedures, and then weapons and dangerous objects and alcohol and other drugs policies are all included in this plan. Last month, at the end of February, we received a letter from the state superintendent, Tom Torlakson, who emphasized the importance of the plans for creating positive school climates and for student success, and that he also urged us to include a mental health policy in the plan. It came a little late as this plan has developed from the start of the school year, well, really from March 1st as we go to the next March 1st, but as you probably reviewed the plan, you saw where mental health was included in many of our school site plans, but we decided that a district goal might be appropriate to then augment that mental health piece. And so this year I'm proposing the district goal that the district will strengthen the capacity of the school sites to provide a continuum of high quality, accessible, school-linked and school-based academic and wellness supports to youths and families experiencing poor health and educational outcomes. what that looks like is the creation of multidisciplinary teams of our school staff and our outside providers, and then a coordination of services within our teams, which would link our referral systems between schools and our academic interventions and our health service providers. These teams are called COSS teams, which are coordinated support teams, and we are in the process of implementing them throughout the district. Some very nice examples are currently in Maryland, which is Project Roadrunner is a very nice example, and then Junction also has a nice example, as well as Del Val High School. So the components that I was talking about, these are a few examples of component one, people and programs, but I would like you to know that, or the public to know that all of our schools have goals in each of these areas, and the state asks us to sort of limit our goals so that we can focus on certain areas as we move forward, and they say to limit them to one or two, and most of our school sites do have that number. Here is a couple of examples of our people and programs goals. One from Croce Elementary School. We will be a place where students and staff demonstrate responsibility and respect for everyone on campus. We will promote a positive school climate through a consistent discipline policy that is consistently enforced and known to all stakeholders. So along with this goal are objectives and then an action plan. And at Croce, the staff will consistently enforce the 5 tenets of Cheetah Pride with special attention to respect for individuals. Posters will be visible in every classroom, and teachers and classroom rules will be included in school-wide visuals, so throughout signs, message boards. The parent-student handbook will also be available online and in hard copy at the beginning of each year. And then one for Mendenhall Middle School, we'll continue to implement Character Counts program with a renewed focus on the development of positive teacher-student interaction opportunities. And students will participate in Character Counts lessons throughout the year that focus on responsibility, community building, and anti-bullying. That was component 1, and component 2 is place, and here are some examples of those goals. One from Rancho Las Positas School. Through the establishment of traditions, celebrations, and strong communication, will establish a smooth transition between grade levels and middle school. And their action plan is through whole school spirit assemblies, classroom buddies, and weekly Project Wisdom character education announcements. The feeling of safety and community is increased for all Rancho students and staff. Communications to parents and students about transition to middle school, including similar characteristics, programs, school safety, and character education. This accomplishment is accomplished via newsletter, flyer, website, school messenger, and parent and student presentations in February. And then Junction K-8 will provide a safe physical and social environment for all students and staff. And some of the actions that they will be taking is they will increase funding and allocation for additional yard duty staff, and will continue to improve the safety of our school drop-off and pickup areas by using school personnel, clear signage, and parent support. They're just a few of the goals and objectives and action plans that each of our schools have. A few examples. So the timeline is very clear. It's laid out by the Ed Code that each school reviews and updates its comprehensive safe school plan by March 1st or March 1 of each year. And then they send it to the board and they ask for your approval. And then obviously, hopefully they will get your approval, and then the ongoing process will start again with them adjusting, sharing, and then standardization of their plans as we move forward. So the superintendent's recommendation is to approve the 2014-15 Comprehensive Safe School Plan.
Great. Questions or comments from board members? Dr. Dunlop?
When I looked at the Safe Schools plan, it of course immediately reminded me of what we'd covered before, which is physical safety. But a lot of what you're dealing here is better expressed by the junction statement, which is a safe physical and social environment. And most of what they're focusing on is the social environment at the school where the students feel comfortable, accepted, and not harassed. And so I think that's really the main goal. We're talking about physical safety is, you know, is school secure and all of the other, but I think this emotional security of the students is probably a critical item and one that is becoming the focus of this report versus the title, which just says Safe School.
Yeah, I would totally agree.
We're stuck with the title, probably.
Yeah, emotional and social piece is a huge piece of this safety plan, as well as the physical plan.
Yeah, but anyway, I think it's the right thing to do, and of course we've been working on the character counts and character development for many years, and I think that's the right thing to do.
What?
I have nothing to say. You had a motion.
Well, actually, I had a comment, and I didn't know if our restorative justice guest wanted to comment on this because it kind of ties in. You're certainly welcome to make a comment if you want to come to the timer, please. Margaret.
In my view, that is a wonderful outline, and I think that what we're also looking for, and I'm sure you are also, is a way of expressing it in this classroom, and having each classroom having a certain tools that they can use for problem solving and any difficulties that come up. And when that's so, it seems to be that when that happens in a schoolroom, and then the next schoolroom, and then the next, it becomes a whole automatically, kind of automatically, or at least magically it almost seems in some cases, it becomes a part of the whole school feeling and respect and for each other. I don't know how much you want me to go into this, the practices of the restorative justice, but I don't think this is the time for it probably, but I can see how that would dovetail with those goals very beautifully. So I think working together on it is just a natural.
Well, thank you for your comments. I
forgot to mention, I have books on restorative justice. If anybody wants a book, I think I have enough almost to go around.
You can give them to Mrs. Gaylord, and she'll make them available to us.
That'll be perfect.
Thank you very much. What I wanted to say is, as I read through the reports, one of the things I thought about was the shooting stars, because I think that that's a culmination, really, of establishing the character counts kind of programs and an environment in the school that's inclusive, that, you know, that just didn't happen out of nothing. And I'm so proud of those kind of activities, and it's certainly a wonderful program, and I hope that going forward we have more examples of that we're going to be discussing and showing, you know, we are really working on not just the physical safety but the emotional health and well-being of our students, and that's a shining example of it. So at this time I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we adopt this comprehensive safe school plan.
And I'll second that.
And the motion is made and seconded. If the clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Schultz. Mrs. White,
Aye.
President Runyon,
Aye.
Dr. Dunlop,
Aye.
and myself is aye, and Mr. McLaughlin is aye.
So the motion carries unanimously with those present. And that brings us to the consent items, the motion. And Mr. Rogies told me that he wants to talk about item G, so.
Yes, I just have some questions. I believe Mr. Ranchak might have these answers. There are verifications for student attendance from the Livermore District in the charter, but is there any verification that a student is from a property tax household in Livermore that generates revenue from the parcel? Is there any way to verify that?
That's a good question. I'd say we don't have a process in place yet to do that, but that's certainly something we can look into to determine whether or not the folks are from those types of homes.
And then the other question, is there going to be a snapshot of services before the parcel tax and then?
Wait a minute. Yeah, I think before we move on to another question, you know, any student who lives within the boundaries of the Livermore School District is going to generate property tax one way or another. Because if they're in our attendance district, they're paying property taxes to Alameda County, and
So someone is paying on behalf of the resident wherever they reside. So whether it's them directly or the landlord who owns it, there would be funds generated from the home. I guess with the exception of if they were homeless or in the homeless shelter, that might not be the case. But I think that's a very small group of students, and I'm not sure if there are many at the charter. So I guess I would say there wouldn't really be a compelling reason to
I guess the question I thought he was asking
discriminate
is there a way to verify that the address is an accurate one for a student attending school? Was that the?
That's it. I mean, you get students that come from out of the area that latch onto a aunt or something that they really reside in, say, San Leandro, but they're not paying property taxes.
But their in-district enrollment has to be verified, and it would be the same process.
That we would verify our own enrollment.
Now, if a student lived with an elderly adult who had taken the senior citizen exemption, but that would be the same for our students, that they may have been exempted themselves, but then they wouldn't be necessarily paying the parcel tax. That's the other instance. But I mean, we don't do that for our own families. So I guess I would wonder why we would want to
I think
do
we could
that.
verify enrollment similar that we would do for a transfer request. Is an address an accurate address? Those are the sorts of verifications we do. Is that kind of what you're having in mind?
Well, I'm glad the discussion took place because it really just kind of struck me is that, yeah, you might have one or two students that might not be generating parcel tax, but what's the point of verifying statistically that we're not having a problem with it? Maybe it's a non-question at this point.
Yeah, I guess I don't understand the point because there are a lot of households paying tax with no children. You know, that the parcel tax is to support the public schools of Livermore. And it's really irrelevant whether someone has a student in school or not, that it's the citizens of Livermore banding together to give a little bit of extra funding, that $138 a year, to support the public school students.
I think in regard to the MOU, perhaps the question is, because the funds that would be generated by the charter school would be dependent upon the number of students that they have who reside in Livermore. And so if your question is, are we going to do a verification to determine if those are actually students in Livermore, because that's how we base their funding, I would say yes, we would certainly want to verify.
Do.
Yeah.
When they do their property
Correct.
requests.
Yeah, the Prop 39 request is a verification.
I tell you, at 11:30 this morning, it sounded better in my head than it did now. So, I do have another
The
question.
opportunity to have all questions
Right.
processed through, and so it's fine.
The other question I have is, from the parcel tax, since we now are going forward with money to the charter, will there be a snapshot of services that they currently have, and then after the parcel hopefully passes, that those services that are in the parcel that we're going to take a look at, see that they are producing those services that charter like we have to. And I'm going to assume, well, that the I forgot the committee.
Parcel tax
Oversight. The Oversight Committee.
Committee is going to look at both us and the charter.
Right. They're going to be required to provide the same documentation for use of funds as the Livermore School District does. And so we certainly have the before budget, which is current, and there are expected uses for the parcel tax funds, and we certainly would have their after budget. But I think the oversight committee would be responsible for taking a look at those and determining whether or not their uses are appropriate.
And then any way, shape, or form will if we do not oversight the charter at some point, will that affect parcel tax?
The way that the MOU is currently written, because we don't currently oversee the high school, that was not a condition of the sharing of a pro rata portion of the parcel tax income. Who does the oversight was not the issue. It was more that we limit it to the two existing schools with a cap on their enrollment portion. So even if their enrollment were to grow, the proportion amount has a cap. And so that was just for everyone's sake, for budgeting purposes, so that we weren't going to have to make so many continual adjustments. But we currently don't oversee the high school, and they were still included, and we do oversee LVCS. I think actually what will happen, though, in the case of LVCS, they're very used to oversight and sharing everything. LVCP has not, so they will be now sharing, whether we have oversight or not, they will now have to share their budgets with the Independent Oversight Committee if Measure G is successful.
And if they don't choose to, then they're not going to, they risk not getting funds in the future if they don't account for the expenditures and in the allowable categories.
Well,
thank you for the clarification.
It seems to me that the allowable categories are very broad. And for me, one of the reasons for the success of the Livermore renewal of our parcel tax, as it's been done in the past, is that we have been able to specify up front what we're going to pay for. We pay for technology and class size reduction and the science program and counselors and enrichment classes. I mean, there's 5 things, not in this one, but on the other ones, and we were able to talk about those during the campaign. It would seem to me it would be not unreasonable to ask the charter school to tell us up front as part of their campaign what they're going to spend their money on. Because I would, like I say, the specifics are not in the charter, in the ballot measure, and they could spend it on things which I think would be unacceptable, but be within the range of the allowances. And so I do hope that before they propose something before we send the money, that we have a specific proposal for what it's going to be.
I think the point of having the MOU is to govern the relationship.
But I'd also like to clarify that the ballot language is limited to 75 words, so it is not full and extensive. It has to really be very sparse. But the full text of the measure is very specific, and that's pages long. And there's also an argument in favor, and that has many more details. So I think what I would do as part of our information sharing, because as the district we can't campaign, or advocate anyway, but we can certainly share information. We can make sure that people see the full text of the ballot, which is very precise, and that is what I believe they're held to by the Independent Oversight Committee, is not just the 75 words on the page. So that would be, I think you would feel a better comfort level both about what we're asking the community for. I think the community would feel better as well to know what the specifics are, and then certainly any specificity that we provide we would expect of the charter. It isn't supposed to be just handing money over with carte blanche, free reign.
The background of the MOU states the 5-6 things that are going to be in the tax that were parcel tax would raise local revenue to provide advanced courses in math, science, and engineering, keep schools well maintained, attract and retain qualified teachers, provide elementary school science and technology.
But you could give everybody a raise and attract and retain highly qualified teachers. You could have the school painted, and that would provide well-maintained schools. And I don't think that's the sense of what the community wants the money spent on.
Well, and I guess that is the point of having a parcel tax oversight committee of community members to make sure that they're appropriate expenditures and
That-
justifiable and answerable to the community.
But the parcel tax oversight committee does not meet until after the money's spent. You know, they meet in June after the year's over and verify that it was spent on.
Yes, but there are 7 years that we're asking for renewal. And if it is not believed that it was appropriately spent,
But if it,
there are provisions in the MOU.
but not here. I mean, if it says attract and retain highly qualified teachers.
Okay, do you have the entire MOU where it
Yeah.
talks about that if they don't provide?
No, but giving all their staff a raise with the money would in fact come under the category of attracting and retaining highly qualified teachers.
The school is obligated to expend parcel tax revenues in compliance with the terms set forth in the parcel tax resolution, the ballot language of the parcel tax, and any amendments thereto and applicable law. And then it goes on to state that if they fail to comply, that they're in jeopardy of not receiving future.
What I believe that Trustee White is saying is that possibly pre-meetings, when and if Measure G were to pass, pre-meetings to firm up a common understanding of the argument in favor and the entire ballot text.
Yeah, I think we need to see the
because what the community pulled and favored in relation to attracting and retaining high quality teachers had to do mostly with lower class size. That's the way it comes out in the large text, and so that would be what we would be holding to, as well as what they would be holding to. So I guess what I'm envisioning would be if Measure G were to be successful, then there would be a common understanding of both boards, both staff, both administrative staffs of what it entails, and that would then guide the work of the parcel tax independent oversight committee. Is that really, because your
Well-
concern is that they meet later.
Well,
after money has
that's
been
only
spent.
the oversight committee
But-
issue.
but-
I think that the spending of the money to increase the salaries would fall under those 5 things. So the parcel tax committee would have no leg to stand on if they objected. Now, I would like to see the text of the whole ballot issue, and maybe it's further defined in that more carefully.
Well, it sounds to me like,
I mean, and I don't think, you know, we need
excuse
to.
me, it sounds to me like we have a problem. And it sounds to me like we need to pull this item, because if you want a budget from the charter schools on what they intend to expend their share on, then I think it needs to come before we enter into an MOU. And I wish that I had heard any of these objections in the weeks that we've been talking about it, rather than when we put it on consent, because we hadn't heard any of these objections.
Mrs. Runyon, I have written to Mrs. Bowers on this topic at least once.
Okay, so what I'm saying is I would interject, what you have brought up is not related to this item. This item is an MOU to share. What I have heard you bring up is a concern about the Parcel Tax Oversight Committee only evaluating once the funds are expended. So that could be answered in a different kind of an agenda item at a future meeting that doesn't have to affect the MOU. That
when we
could be
have a-
answered in a partial tax, presentation of facts, or getting input on what the board would prefer. But it's all hypothetical because we don't have a parcel tax that has passed. Measure G has just been placed on the ballot. So this is just positioning toward going forward. So I guess that to me might be a different agenda item that maybe Mrs. White is requesting, to say maybe for either the parcel tax oversight or what to do if we were to pass it. If it passes, I would say the next meeting after that, to have an agenda item that talks about the processes and hear what the board feels comfortable with. But I don't know if that really has bearing for the sharing.
Yeah, well, I've got a lot of issues with what was just said, but I'm going to let Dr. Dunlop have the floor first, because
Well, I was just going to interject that, we're going to have a parcel tax election, but we don't lose our responsibility for the management of funds, when the election comes. We will see the presentation of the oversight committee. We'll see the presentations of the superintendent about how the money is planned to be spent, and we have authority to say, well, why don't we look at that differently? Now, we can't go against what the measure says, but there is some discretion, and we, the board, will be responsible to have the ultimate oversight. Even though we have an oversight committee, they will report to us, and we have the job of making sure that it goes where it wants. So I don't see that there's this issue that all of a sudden we're going to have the election and then it's set in motion and everything happens without our oversight of it. We still have oversight. That's my view.
So I see this as a process problem, that an MOU defines the relationship that we're expecting to have with another entity. And if there are concerns about what's in the MOU, I would have liked to have heard them in the public meetings that we've had, and I'm sorry, I would have liked to have heard any concern that you wanted to see a detailed budget so that we could have worked on that in process. Now, I don't think it's insurmountable. I have a suggestion, and my suggestion would be that we pull the item for tonight and we ask the charter schools to, we need to provide them with a round number of what we think their share would be. We're looking at slightly less than 10% of the $3.2 million that it's been in the past. So we're talking about $300,000, and, split it between schools and ask them to provide their intended expenditures, because I think that will address your issue of transparency. And the question is, do we have enough timeline left for that to be accomplished? So I think we pull it tonight and ask the question, can they respond, and what kind of time do they need to respond? And then we'll look at this at the next regularly scheduled meeting of the board. Because what I don't want to have is an MOU that says, this is what we agree to, and then, oh, by the way, we want to add conditions after the fact. To me, that the process is you enter into an MOU, and that's what the understanding between all parties is. So if we're not comfortable with it, I think we've got to pull it.
Well, I'm comfortable with it, but I'm just as comfortable with it as I am with the parcel tax language. There's nothing in this MOU which is contrary to the parcel tax language.
But you're saying you want to see their specific expenditures,
not before we go ahead with the MOU.
But then how are you going to hold them to any particular thing that's not outlined here?
How is anybody going to hold us to it? I mean, we could do just as I said but we don't. And we have a history with our community.
But they don't.
They don't. That's why, not as a part of the MOU, but as a part of the negotiations and the conversations we have with them, and part of the campaign.
But I don't think there are going to be any further negotiations. That was the point of entering into an MOU, was to define the nature of the relationship and the legalities between the two entities.
But I brought up this whole issue of specificity of the language while Mr. Trematola was speaking at it. And it didn't get specified, but on the other hand, we have a history of very specific uses for the money. And all I'm asking, I mean, it's part of the conversation that we have, and I would...
But we don't run their schools, we don't run their budgets, that we define our relationship with them with legal documents. And this MOU is the defining relationship document. And if we wanted specificity, we could ask them for a budget. But I don't think that anywhere in here it says you must provide us with a budget prior to expenditures. It says you are subject to oversight, and if you want to know the specifics, I think we have to ask for them. And I don't think that we have asked for them.
I think there's almost two conversations going. As I understand it, Mrs. White is worried in general about the wording not being specific enough. It's not related specifically to the charter school. Is that correct?
Yes. But on the
Okay.
other hand, our history has specified.
But we have a history of 2 times of having it and spending it as expected, and so we have a history. But the issue about the MOU, we're going to have to work with them to make sure that the statements in the parcel tax are followed. And we have statements about what it will be, and that will be part of our job, to, at least for the, for sure, for the K-8 school, to say, if you're not doing that, that's a problem. We'll encourage them as much as we can on the other one where we don't have detailed oversight, but it's helpful to have this involve all the schools in Livermore.
I guess what I'm stuck on is what I heard is that they can do the list of activities that you talked about, raise teacher salaries and paint a building within the language of the MOU. I think
But we could too.
within the language of the MOU, and I think that's correct. And I don't think it would be very smart of them to do that, but it's possible. And in my mind, the only way to address that concern is to ask them for an expenditure list.
So if I could just, and I'm fine either way, but I just wanted to make sure that you're making a well-informed decision. So first of all, when you mentioned, Mrs. Runyon, that you were concerned about the timeline. So our next board meeting is April 8th. And most of the voters in Livermore vote by mail, which is May 8th. So we already have a compressed timeline. I just would like the board to be aware of a more compressed timeline. I also will tell you that 2 very solid lawyers negotiated this, one from charter side, one from parcel tax measures side. And they put in 2 safeguards that maybe would make the board feel more comfortable, I don't know. But 5A says the school, this is talking about the charter schools, are obligated to expend parcel tax revenues in compliance with terms set forth in the resolution, which is what we passed, the ballot language for the parcel tax, which is the full text of the measure, which I think you would feel much more comfortable with, and any amendments thereto in applicable law. So that part was in there, as well as the fact, and this was done intentionally so, the superintendent's recommendation was not to just approve it as is, it was to approve it and delegate authority to the superintendent to make technical adjustments as may be deemed necessary on advice of legal counsel to carry out the board's intent. And so I guess what would be helpful if you, to move the process along, is if that we really clarified the board's intent tonight and then allow those technical revisions to be made with legal counsel and consultation, so not to maybe hold up the whole MOU, but to say, to really hone in. It sounds to me the board's intent is not only for this MOU, but also for us to make sure that it's clear. Because, you know, as superintendent, I inherited a partial tax where things were already divided up, where some went for technology. And I think to honor Trustee White's concerns, I have had some of those same questions. How did we decide that 200,000 went for technology and that this amount went for there? I wasn't part of those decisions. I assumed the board was. With local control funding, everyone's going to be weighing in. And so that's the part about the budget discussion, I think, is I believe the way it happened was class size reduction came first, and then whatever was left was split up. But I don't know.
The board did not weigh in, but there were the 5 things on the ballot that were required. And it was the science program in elementary school, counselors, and class size reduction. And then the rest was split among the technology and, well, first library is the first one, and then technology and enrichment class.
So I was just suggesting that, and again, not to overstep, but just to say that is one way to maybe make sure that the board's intent is still included, but to keep things going.
I still remain concerned about the process, that if you want to see specific expenditures, I think that we have to inform them that that's the case and that we expect to have some kind of an approval level.
But we could also amend it tonight.
Yeah.
And add that, and you guys could approve an amended version because you have the first call at this.
Yeah.
And then they have an opportunity to accept it or not, and if they don't accept it, we will still proceed. So that's another option, is you could actually amend. We could wordsmith, Margaret Gaylor could take some notes, I could take some notes, and you could propose something.
Why don't we take a 5-minute break, and work on some, or a 10-minute break, and work on some amended language and see if we can come up with something that will pass. So I'm going to declare we're in recess at 9:06 for 10 minutes. Listening to the prior discussion, and so could you tell us the amendment?
Certainly. So we're proposing to possibly amend this MOU with this language. Prior to April 4th, 2014, it is the expectation that LVCS and LVCP will provide a preliminary outline of intended expenditures of their portion of anticipated parcel tax funds in keeping with the terms set forth in the parcel tax resolution, the ballot language for the parcel tax, and any amendments thereto and applicable law in keeping with the LVJUSD board's intent.
Does that meet everyone's concerns? Address everyone's concerns.
I didn't have a concern with the document. I took the lead from the superintendent that this has been vetted by our lawyers and their lawyers, and they've all agreed with the wording and their intent. My thought is they're just asking for a portion of the funds. I don't know why we're dictating how they're going to spend it. They can spend it any way they want.
No, they can't. They've got to spend it in accordance with the language on the ballot.
I understand that, and then the lawyers have said this is what we're going to do, and we want to seem to fine-tune it.
Well, I guess I want to know, do you have an objection to the language? Or does the language sound acceptable?
Could you read it again and what section it's going to go into?
It will reappear in a moment. I'm being technologically challenged at the moment. It will be just one moment.
You go loud. I want to hear Bill and Ann, and then I'll come back.
Okay, prior to April 4th, 2014, it is the expectation that LVCS and LVCP will provide a preliminary outline of intended expenditures of their portion of anticipated parcel tax funds in keeping with the terms set forth in the parcel tax resolution, the ballot language for the parcel tax, and any amendments thereto and applicable law in keeping with the LVJUSD board's intent.
And that's going to, I just want to know where that was going to appear in the document.
And it would be preliminary because the parcel tax, if it were to be successful, wouldn't begin until 2015 and things could change, but it would be a general outline.
And you wanted to know
where's that appearing? What
the
section?
location. Would it be just another paragraph at the end?
It would most likely be under 5, section 5, because it's the in consideration of the receipts of receipt of parcel tax revenue, the school would be agreeing to these terms, and we have them agreeing to documenting their expenditures. So I would insert it. It's kind of a subset of A or before B.
Mrs. White, it was your concern. So does this address your concern?
Yes, and I think the conversation that we've had this evening would clarify to any casual observer our intent.
Dr. Dunlop, are you comfortable with the amendment?
I was comfortable with the beginning language, and
you have
we
the
can say all of
objection.
this. I don't have any objections to this, but we relied on our lawyers to give us something that they thought solved all the problems. We've added something. Hopefully we haven't added something that's going to be a problem. I don't think so. It sounded reasonable, but...
Okay, Mr. Rogie?
Could you read the first 5 words again? You guys keep taking it off the screen. Don't do that.
Can you load it on the screen?
Yeah, put it up for the public.
Prior to April 4th, 2014, it is the expectation that LVCS and
Okay,
LVC...
right there, the expectations. Do we not want to put requirements rather than expectations? An expectation is still quite nebulous in my mind. You might expect it, but I may not do it.
Okay, so we could say prior to April 4th, 2014, LVCS and LVCP will be obligated to provide. That's the common language in the MOU, is obligated.
But you have to realize, we're throwing them a real curve.
It's a very tight timeline.
Especially if it's April 8th, because then they would have to go through some process to decide how they're going to spend that money, and then they would feel like they're stuck. Because how do they change it after that fact if they decide, well, we really wanted to put more into the science part versus something? So we're
What's the second
we're
meeting in
creating a
April?
trap, in my view, for them. So I don't.
Another option could be prior to expending funds, but then we're back to your concern.
I mean,
Or prior to release of funds, because this is all hypothetical if we never...
Yeah, but the problem is, if we're just saying you're going to provide a budget, the deciding point is at the election. And so if you're going to require that they give specificity beyond the ballot language, that, I think it's got to come prior to election. Now, I don't know how far in advance. I would be okay with the end of April, because nobody's voting until May, right? Isn't the voting window starting in May? So as long as the language is out by the time people are voting, to me, that would be okay. And I think that addresses Mrs. White's concerns about specificity, and I don't think the gentlemen object to specificity. They just...
Well, we're going to have our specificity, and you're saying they will report us theirs. But both of us are obligated to go by the language of the property tax measure. Now, if you want to ask them to tell them what their interpretation is before, what are we going to do? Tell them that's not their interpretation?
Well,
it's not in the intent of,
I was okay with the language at the beginning, too. And, I think that if we'd wanted specificity, it would have been best to ask for it at the beginning of the conversation. But I can see the point that specificity is helpful, and we have a long history of specificity within our own expenditures. So, I guess that I would approve the amendment and the MOU with the amendment, and then see if they think that they can meet that timeline. If they can't, we can come back at the next meeting and reconsider. But, I'd like, if we can find consensus, to go ahead and approve something and then see if they have an objection to it. They hopefully are already thinking about what they would logically spend money on and wouldn't have a problem giving an outline of, we want to add an additional science class, we want to add additional sections of music, whatever it is within the bounds of the language. And, I think the point is that the generalities of what they say are going to be given to the Partial Tax Oversight Committee for them to do their work of, did you adhere to the spirit of what you told us?
Well,
right?
I would think that they don't need to give us a complete list of what they're going to expend the $300,000 on. They're going to give us broad categories. We're going to add a science class, and even spending more than the $300,000, and they will pick and choose when they get, when it's actually part of their budget, which of these things that fit in our...
Well, but if they promise that they're going to do certain things, they can't promise more than they can do, because then how do you hold them accountable?
This isn't a promise. This is a category of things that they're going to consider.
I believe if I ask them for a general outline, I think that they will find that to be reasonable. I agree with Dr. Dunlop that maybe asking for too much specificity in a 2-week span and expecting them to go through their process as well probably is not reasonable. But I think if we contact them and say we'd like some general idea of what your plan is, I think that's reasonable.
With that being said, I have to say that I would like what you said, President Runyon, but I'd rather reverse it. I'd rather go ahead and approve the existing document and make changes down the road after taking this wording that you've come up with, send it to the lawyers, see what they think. At least we get something on the record, and it's not really harmful to this point. We need to make the changes. We can make amendments later on down the road, but I'd rather get this done tonight.
I don't know that we can amend it because we're making an agreement with them. It's like entering into a contract. You can't approve it and then say, and now we're going to change it.
Do we know when they're scheduled to?
Well, except upon mutual agreement. If we came up with something a little bit more specific and we asked them to agree to that and they were amenable
But that
to that.
again would be a change.
In my view, is they're going to be bound by the parcel tax language. And you know, we can put all the words we want in, but they will come back and provide us things that meet the parcel tax language. And so I think we're basically going around in a circle. It's unnecessary here. The language in the parcel tax is what they will be judged on in terms of whether they're meeting the criteria. And we can review that for sure by in the K-12 the K-8 school, because we'll be looking at that in detail. We don't look at the other school in detail, but they're bound by that language just like we are. And if we saying it has to be far more specific, then it's got to be more specific for us. So I just don't have a problem with this. And I think we're getting into an area which will probably cause us problems.
So I'd like to move that we approve the original memorandum under consent item G with the original wording.
And is there a second?
I'll second it.
The motion is made and seconded and we're just on item G at this moment.
Yeah.
Could the clerk call the roll?
Yes. Mrs. White.
Aye.
Dr. Dunlap.
Aye.
President Runyon.
Aye.
Myself, aye, and Mr. McLaughlin is absent.
Okay, so the original MOU, as written by our attorneys, is passed. And I think for completeness, we're going to go ahead and ask them anyway to provide some information so that the Parcel Tax Oversight Committee has something to judge them against in terms of expenditures without making it a requirement of the MOU.
I would also think that the campaign committee would want to have this list.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
The community is being asked to buy a pig in a poke if they aren't saying what they're going to spend the money on. And that would be pretty close to public record by then.
All right, so now if we could return to the consent items.
President, I would like to move that we approve consent items A, B, C, D, E, F, and H.
And I'll second that.
Motion is made and seconded. If the clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Dunlap.
Aye.
Myself, aye. President Runyon.
Aye.
Mrs. White.
Aye.
And
Mr. McLaughlin.
And that motion carries unanimously with one absence. And we have no further resolutions tonight, so we'll go to board member reports and requests. And I'll start with Dr. Dunlap.
I was out of town for most of the time, so I have almost nothing to report on that. Just stay away from airplanes and other sick people. That's the only thing I really brought back. So good move on your part. It's all pass.
And I'll waive my time.
Mrs. White.
I've attended the PCIC meeting this noon, and the children's librarian from the Livermore Public Library was there. And it's become obvious that the cooperation that has begun is really synergistic, because their folks go to our schools and offer student library cards, and their folks come to our places and are going to provide research-based equipment, tools, so that they can know how to use our reference materials well. So it's going to work out very well.
We have a very fine library in town, and we have a very fine library board, and one of those members is one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. We have an intergovernmental meeting at dinner every night. So I'll be sure to pass on your comments to him.
Governmental is this week, so I think they all go.
So I had two requests, and I'm agnostic as to whether we hear about it in a Friday packet or a board meeting. But there's been significant rising commodity prices in the United States, especially in meat. And I'd like to know if the lunch program is going to be able to meet their budget, or whether we need to maybe help out. The lunch program has certainly helped us at times. So that would be the first. And then I think everybody got the information that School Services put out about the CalPERS future contribution rates. The members of the public probably are not aware that the projection for the pension increases goes from the current 11.4% of payroll to, by 2020, to being 20.4% of payroll, an almost doubling of contributions to maintain the pension promises already made. Now, it's widely believed that CalSTRS is in a significantly worse position and would have to raise their contribution rates even higher. And so what I'd like to see is the fiscal impact if it were equivalent, knowing that we don't have these figures yet for CalSTRS, and that's probably in the works, but until then, the best we can do is look at the impact on our budget if it were the equivalent rise in contributions required to maintain the promises already made. I have to say that I was shocked when this report came out. I was expecting that we were going to have to raise our pension contributions, but I was thinking on the order of a few percentage points and thought we should start with maybe 0.25% and keep building to it. But it's clear from the numbers that that's going to be completely insufficient, and this is well above the rates of increase that we're projecting to have available. So we're going to have to address it, and I think the earlier we start, the better position we're going to be in. So I'd like to have that data. And that's all I had. So we'll go to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. So, and good news about our school nutrition program. Our Nutrition Services Division of the California Department of Education concluded off-site and on-site administrative review of our national school lunch and school breakfast programs, and we received glowing results. The auditors couldn't say enough nice things about the district and the staff and campus catering at all levels of food service in our district. They were very impressed by the organization of our documents. Barbara Lee and her staff even color-coded the requested documents, made it very simple for the auditors, and the efficiency and orderliness of the site breakfast and lunch programs. There were no findings, and now they've decided they want to use Livermore as a model for other districts in this area. So they're in the process of writing up results, and they will have them to us shortly, and we'll definitely share them. I wanted to just tell you a couple of the happenings that have been going on. I was able to attend a Joe Mitchell K-8 fundraiser designed to raise funds for their STEM program, and the Sunset Gala and auction, and they raised thousands of dollars in a fun-filled evening to support students and programs. I was also able to attend the California School Employees Association chapter meeting. They have quite a few new folks who are in their leadership positions, so they invited me to come and meet them. And there were retirees from CSCA there as well. So they had many questions about our budget, about the new local control funding formula, and I was able to provide them facts about Measure G, which is the parcel tax renewal measure with no increase, an independent oversight committee exemptions for seniors that is being placed on the June 3rd, 2014 ballot. I had the opportunity to attend the Innovation Tri-Valley Leadership Group meeting, and that's where industry leaders and education leaders come together to partner in mutually beneficial ways. So we're always looking for more opportunities, and we made some great connections with Cisco in the last few weeks. And tomorrow night, just a reminder to piggyback on Haley's report, is the Granada Expo. Granada High School will be showcased for the entire community, particularly the incoming freshmen. I encourage you to stop by if you can to see our academic and extracurricular programs and a very festive atmosphere. And then this Thursday evening, also as was mentioned, just a reminder, at 7 p.m. is the 3rd annual reclassification award ceremony, and that's to commemorate an important milestone in the lives of English learners. We have very stringent criteria for reclassification status, so it's quite an achievement, And it's very indicative that these students are on their way to becoming bilingual and eventually earning the California Seal of Biliteracy on their diploma upon graduation from our high schools. So many, many exciting things happening. And with that, I will conclude my report.
And the meeting is adjourned at 9:35.